it's so new. It's the most beautiful feeling to embrace motherhood, to imagine there's a life growing inside you. So it's almost like your baby has been part of this journey.
To avoid any kind of controversy, I just want to tell you that the pregnancy happened after the training and the action
Yes.
sequences were done.
Most importantly.
Yeah, that is the most important
That's
thing.
important, right?
So once we got to know about the pregnancy, then only the talky portions were left.
Talky exterior,
Right.
Walking shots were left.
मेरा क्वेश्चन सिंपल है, क्या आपने सब साइड्स दिखाए हैं?
लोग खुद बोल रहे थे कि हम 7 बजे के बाद बाहर नहीं निकलेंगे तो बेहतर है, हम रोड्स पे नहीं जा सकते, हम कैफेज में नहीं बैठ सकते. तो कहीं ना कहीं हमने ये कोशिश की है, एंड आई थिंक विद अ करेक्ट इंटेंट व्हाट वी हैव डन इज वी हैव गिवन द ट्रूथ, वी हैव spoken about the facts.
You know, the truth from the other side will also be the way Article 370 was implemented. Have you all shown that? And that's what Justice Kaul also said it.
It's a very patriotic story. It's a story about the courageous officers, the courageous bureaucrats, the courageous security forces who are there in on ground, like fighting for us every day. And how they pulled off something like this, which had so many agencies involved, and still nobody got to know about it. And that's a phenomenal thing.
Trailer does show two leaders who played a big role in this, but it didn't show any other side, any other politician opposing it. Like, there were people who called it the darkest day of democracy. There were people who called it unconstitutional. Your film is a fair display, and Article 370 is something that you've included. All that happened.
100%. My answer is yes. Once the audience goes to theaters on 23rd, I think that will be, the film itself will speak and answer for its this thing better.
Aditya, Yami, welcome to Bollywood Hungama. Thank you firstly so much for your time.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you for...
Right, I think Aditya has also joined, the director of the film. Welcome to Bollywood Hungama.
Thank you so much.
Coming to the subject of the film, there's so much to talk about Kashmir. There's so much to talk about Article 370. My first question to the director is, what have you shown in this film? What part of Article 370, the implementation, what happened after, before, what have you shown in the movie?
I think when it comes to Kashmir, how much a layman knows about Kashmir is a very important point. What we felt when we started the film, we approached the film in a first place. हम कभी कश्मीर के बारे में बात करते हैं तो सरफेस लेवल पे हमें पता होता है, नक्शे में यहाँ ऊपर आता है थोड़ा बहुत conflict. There is always some kind of a conflict. We keep hearing stories about some terrorist activities, some insurgency, some stone pelting and all around. So I think this film will get into the center of it. It will go to the epicenter of the problem. It will show you what's the fundamental socio-political fabric, which is so complex of Kashmir. How is it gray and it's not black and white, so simple? And how Article 370 was kahin na kahin the epicenter of the whole problem. How that article gave the whole liberty, or I would say a kind of a provision in which you have a separate flag, you have a separate constitution. The Constitution of India doesn't really apply there, and almost a separate leader. So a lot of people don't have this awareness of what this means and how this was kind of used for different wrongdoings, and how it was exploited for the for the sake of corruption, for the whole violence that is rallying up in the 70 years. Now, when it comes to the mission, the film explores the origin of it, how it was implemented, and it explores, because people know कि हुआ कब था और हुआ क्या था, हुआ कैसे था, ये पब्लिक डोमेन में इंफॉर्मेशन है ही नहीं. तो जब हमने ये पूरा रिसर्च टेबल पे रखा तो हमें रियलाइज हुआ कि 90-95% तक the information that we have is pretty much confidential and not in the public domain at all. And it is highly dramatic. It is something that is beyond our imagination of how this kind of magnum opus operation took place. And it was not just a matter of just few days or few months. It was a very planned operation which was happening and being planned for a while, for years. So that will be going in very deep. And of course, also showcases in the after effect of what happened on 5th of August, after which
Okay.
we see Kashmir how it is today. How
Okay.
the tourism has boomed, how the development has started, and everything.
Right. Aditya, to you, he's what he's saying is so important that people really don't know across the country. मैंने एक video भी देखा जहाँ पे when people go on streets to ask कि कश्मीर में क्या हुआ था, what is Article 370, बहुत ही funny answers भी मिलते हैं, bizarre answers मिलते हैं. आज भी मैंने एक video देखा Facebook पे, just showed up because I've been reading about it. And someone said, नहीं ये डेट के बाद यहाँ पे गाय को नहीं मारा जाएगा. All kinds of things. Were you surprised when you got these reactions?
Hence the films. Films are basically a great bridge between what like certain uh, certain backgrounds or certain stories or certain people who have been part of those stories know, and what the people in general know. So somewhere we have a great responsibility in on bridging that gap with great films about great true stories and inspired from true stories. And same is what we are doing with Article 370. We are basically uh, bringing a story which is chronologically telling you how uh, the situation of Kashmir was going from bad to worse, and how we like the 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 bureaucrats in Delhi, the defense forces personals in Kashmir, how the intelligence department in Kashmir, Delhi, and India, how they came together to pull this amazing operation, and what was actually eventually the result of it is the whole film. And I feel that we are really proud of what we have created.
Yami, this is a very intense role. This is a very, solid role. From little bit, I've only seen the trailer. The dialogues that you have, the anger that you show. It is, the personality of Yami that we have seen and loved over the years. This is quite the opposite. What was it like to play this and also play it at a time when emotionally and personally you are in another state of mind?
Uh, Thank you, Rohit. uh, wow, there's so many things, and you always stumble at where do I begin by answering this. I think it's better to go back to the basics. It's better when I when I think of my first reaction, how I felt when I read the
Hmm.
script. I think Aditya and Zamle have already spoken, and I'm absolutely in the same boat with them. We felt this story is absolutely is so compelling. It's so
Hmm.
necessary that it must be
Hmm.
brought alive in cinemas, and it's relevant. It's something especially for the youth of today, or any other age group. They should know about what had happened, why it happened, and the team between them. There is every kind of cinema out there which must be encouraged. And this is something which we don't really have a reference. So I think it's a very genre defining kind of a film, I think, in itself. And we hope that the audience connects with the film. For me personally, of course, the moment I closed the script and took a very deep breath, and then I was like, okay, if this is if I'm going to be a part of 370, this has to be. I have played challenging roles before. I have played different kind of roles before, but this is very different from that. I have to completely shut myself from what I've done before.
Hmm.
That's done. I have to see it in absolutely from a very different point of view, and as much as easy it sounds, but to create and knowing, and I'm being aware that I'm also representing someone who is an NIA officer in real life, a female NIA officer. So that kind of really made the responsibility even amped it up even more. And I thought, whatever it takes this film from me, whatever amount of I won't. I mean, I don't know what word to shall I use to express my emotion of how I was feeling at that time. But I have to give it all. I have to give it all. It's almost like creating a parallel person, even though I've not met um, the the courageous officer, but you're creating a new person altogether, in front of your eyes, and imagining that that's you. This was me. This is who I am, but not anymore. This is me, and giving it life, making a backstory, and working in and out, the physicality, the emotional side, the mental preparation, everything, that whatever it takes to create literally a different, a parallel human in front of your eyes.
Right.
It's been a task. Of course, went through training, went through the firsts are always as much they're special. They're always, will I be able to or not? But I think I was very excited. That's one thing that I was very conscious about it. I was very. I told myself repeatedly that, listen, I know this is not me. This is not ideal me, but I don't have to be.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. Enjoy. It's a new skill that you're about to learn. It's for life, and I'll never forget this time. So I used to. There's a small little prayer kind of a thing I made for myself every morning before I used to head out. So of course, had military supervisors. We had military, very kind enough of Lieutenant Colonel Keshwinder Singh ji and Bhushan sir from NSG to help us with weapon training. And they said, forget how to fire a weapon. Can you just show me how can you hold a weapon and just show me? And he asked all of us, me, Weber, Skant, and they said, okay, this is that film, this is that. We don't watch films, but this is ye us film se hai, ye is film se hai, ye aisa hai. So we're not going to do the filmy way. We have to let's get into the real way, as authentic as possible. And so from there to doing the drills, then MMA, and then my physical fitness. Mustafa, who's a health coach, and he was taking care of it. I don't know what all exercises. I've never even heard about it. And when I started doing it, I was like, I think I know how I'm going to die, and this is it.
Right.
But it's all fun. So it's not a sad story. It's not a sob story that I went through this, I got injury, I got this. No, the day you start having fun out of those challenges, I think that's the best feeling.
Right.
And then of course creating and of course shooting at a time where I'm also embracing a new phase in my life. That was a time, I think, that true test comes out, as your true test comes out, maybe as a person. I know we've been reading about it, we've been hearing about it, hormones and gazillion questions and all those things. But I always believe in the strength of mind over anything else, because I've seen my mother do that. And so I think anything is possible if your intention is to try and center yourself. So I knew a part of me was always this professional. I was shoulder responsibility, and there's a commitment I have towards my producers, the makers, and because you're representing something so important, which is once in a lifetime kind of an opportunity. And at the same time, again, it's a once in a, I mean, I'm not once in a, but it's it's so new. It's the most beautiful feeling to embrace motherhood, to imagine there's a life growing inside you. So it's almost like your baby has been part of this journey, and kind of this germ of maybe that balance or hard work is kind of, I think, just from garb sanskar bolte hain. That was my intention. That was my idea. Of course, had some wonderful doctors who had supervised and taking care. And I think all in all, it went well.
Right.
To avoid any kind of controversy, I just want to tell you that the pregnancy happened after the training and the action sequences were done.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the most important
That's
thing.
important, right?
So once we got to know about the pregnancy, then only the talkie portions were left.
Talkie exterior,
walking shots were left. So it was actually quite easy after that. And of course, we had a great team of doctors on standby, and everybody was like really, really helpful during the whole process.
Right. Yeah, to you, Aditya, the director, when there's a political drama being made, there will always be the other side. There will be, even Article 370 has its own critics, people who live now, वो अभी भी criticize करते हैं. मेरा क्वेश्चन सिंपल है, क्या आपने सब साइड्स दिखाए हैं? क्या इज देयर एनीवन हु विल watch the film feel that is this one sided, or does this show everything, does this cover everything that happens there, that happened there?
I think when it comes to Article 370 kind of a topic, the truth is more important.
Okay, yeah.
See, an opinion becomes a side, right? If I say Article 370 ये है, ऐसा ऐसा हुआ, and the fact, if you place it, it's the fact, it's the truth. Then to say, to give an opinion on it is where the question is, where we talk about, what sides and what people are going to say and all. So of course it has a very central idea, which I keep saying, is that you have a country, okay, which got liberation in 1947, and a region is given a separate flag, a separate constitution. So whatever you try to do for development, for whatever it is, that law doesn't apply in Kashmir necessarily. On 15th of August, if you want to really uh, hoist the flag of India, tricolor, and sing a national anthem, that necessarily is not a mandate in that particular valley. Now,
Right,
this is
because
a
it has a special status. Right.
correct. Now, this is a perfect catalyst to use this kind of a point against a nation, to use this kind of a point to fill in your pockets, to use this kind of a point to get in more corruption. And because if let's say if it was a thing where चलो ये जरूरत थी, तो फिर कश्मीर भी डेवलप हो जाता. The reason why a valley was forced to go through a violence so for 7 decades, and a non-stop violence, there was so many things that happened within the course of these years. There was exodus, genocide, everything has been happening there. Insurgency, loss of life. Every day there was a time was there when the stone pelting का density and frequency were huge. मतलब लोग खुद बोल रहे थे कि हम 7 बजे के बाद बाहर नहीं निकलेंगे तो बेहतर है, हम रोड्स पे नहीं जा सकते, हम कैफेज में नहीं बैठ सकते. तो कहीं ना कहीं हमने ये कोशिश की है, एंड आई थिंक विद अ करेक्ट इंटेंट व्हाट वी हैव डन इज वी हैव गिवन द ट्रूथ, वी हैव spoken about the facts, may it be the numbers, may it be anything, it's a factual information that is placed in front of the audience. And when it comes to this particular beat of what people will say, how people are going to react, I think they should watch the film on 23rd, then we'll know. But we have been very clear with our intent.
Right. Aditya, you can also come in here because much more than say someone like me who only watches news and reads a lot. What I want to ask you is, say what he was saying is right. We don't want to go about the opinions. We want to show the truth. The truth from the other side will also be the way Article 370 was implemented. Have you all shown that? Say for example, internet shutdowns happened. For example, political leaders were under house arrest. Are these things shown? State and non-state actors made mistakes in this region for years, and that's what Justice Kaul also said it in when he was when he was reading out, when the whole bench was there. He's the senior most judge on that. He said state and non, and he made some recommendations. Are any of these things shown in it, and do you think it's important that it should be a part, because Article 370, your film, can just become the truth for many people in this generation?
Absolutely. We have chronologically shown exactly what happened, what was the trigger, what was the effect of that trigger, and then how the entire bureaucracy, from bureaucracy to the local investigative agencies to defense forces, how they all came together to pull off something which was so humongous. And while doing that, what all had happened chronologically in those days, we have actually shown everything without making it look like a documentary, because the whole fact is that at the end of the day, it has to entertain also. And at the same time, it has to be factually as close to reality as possible.
Right.
So we have tried to make that balance. If you see, we tried to do that in Uri also.
Yes.
The idea was to tell people how Uri happened. Same way we are telling how Article 370 was abrogated,
Mhm.
and the process which went behind it, like
Mhm.
all the people who were involved in it, how they pulled it off. And it's at the end of the day, it's a very patriotic story. It's a story about the courageous officers, the courageous bureaucrats, the courageous security forces who are there in, like, on ground, like fighting for us every day,
Mhm.
and how they pulled off something like this, which had so many agencies involved, and still nobody got to know about it. And
Yeah.
that's a phenomenal thing. Like, I always used to think about same way about Uri, that it's such a big surgical strike where there is the bureaucracy is involved, intelligence is involved, army is involved, army intelligence is involved, uh, uh, ISRO is involved. It could have leaked from anywhere. It's the same thing over here. It could have
Mhm.
leaked from anywhere. There were so many people involved, and still it doesn't come out. Like I always say that we can really learn, like as an industry, film industry, we can learn thing or two about how to conduct ourselves from
Mhm.
these people, like how there is no loose talk. Everything is
Yeah.
like very prim and proper, and that is something which is a great, it makes it a great cinema. It
Right.
naturally makes it a great cinema, and
Right.
that's what we have done.
Right. From your understanding, this was the only way to implement it as well. Of course, it's a huge achievement. Nobody can deny that. The intentions were, to include it in India. You think this was the only way? Troops going inside. That time everybody was told that there may be a terror threat. That's why 10,000 troops are going inside. But when you talk to locals, they'll say we were not kept in the loop of what is happening. Do you think this was the only way to do it?
See, I don't know if it was the only way, or it was the right way, or it was the wrong way. I don't want to comment on that,
Fair
because
enough. Yeah.
that that's a very retrospective question.
Sure.
The whole point is that the fact that right now we made this film,
Hmm.
we shot this film in an area where even at one point the authorities were not even allowed to get into.
True.
वी
Yeah.
डाउनटाउन श्रीनगर का जो एरियाज में हमने ये फिल्म शूट करी है, वहां पे आप
Hmm.
सोच भी नहीं सकते, आप कदम रखना भी नहीं सोच सकते. The
Correct.
fact
Correct.
that there is like a cinema hall which has opened in Kashmir after 30-35 years, the
Yes.
fact that
Yes.
there was
Right.
the maximum number of footfall in terms of tourism which happened last year, or last year, I think it was 2.5 cr. It's crazy. It's humongous. I being a Kashmiri, I couldn't even have thought of it like 8 years back or 10 years back that someday this will happen. So
Right.
from like when we look at the scenario currently, we are realizing that, like, on ground, like there is so much development happening. There is, like, the schools are open. There is no like आपका internet services बंद नहीं हो रहे हैं, हड़ताल नहीं हो रहे, पत्थरबाजी नहीं हो रही. I think it's a step towards the right direction. Like, it's absolutely towards the right direction. So the 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 fact that it is happening right now on ground, I don't think there is any other way to look at it. Like,
Right.
there is no कि यार नहीं ये गलत हो गया. हमारे को मजा, like, any peace loving person would not say कि नहीं यार पहले better था. पहले बड़ा
And
मजा आता था, पत्थर पत्थर जब पड़ते थे तो बड़ा मजा आता था. Nobody's going to talk like that.
also, I feel another thing was this mission was carried out without a single loss of innocent life,
Hmm.
which in itself, to do it with Kashmir kind of a valley, wherein you can
Mhm.
easily preempt कि बहुत loss होगा, is a huge.
Mhm.
That's the reason we call it a successful. We are not calling it successful only because abrogation हुआ. The whole thing is
Right.
the kind of operation you are able to do without a single loss of innocent life. I think
Mhm.
it's a huge effort, and it's a huge success.
Right. Yami, what do you want people to take away from this film when they come to watch it, and what do you want? What would it be your message to people who are coming in to watch, buying ticket for your film?
I think audiences always supported genre defined cinema, and audiences
Mhm.
always supported uh, good cinema. I think
Right.
they've only poured more love, even for films where we feel, maybe from a different perspective, we feel like really, but I don't have a single example, at least in the last 10, 15 years, where I'd say, this was a good film, but it didn't get its due. At least not in my memory right now. So audience is very smart. I think audience gets the right intention behind making what's the director, what's the maker's intent behind creating a film. I feel this is an important film for the audience, and their takeaway will be to infuse once again that spirit of, in some way, patriotism, the spirit of oneness, the spirit of peace, the importance of peace, and I think that's a great feeling to have in its own way. I remember after Uri, there is of course no comparison between Article 370 and Uri, but just to kind of connect what I'm trying to say, after the film, there were so many entries.
Yeah, so what had happened was that when post Uri release, like one day I got like this random call from an officer from Indian Army, and we were having a casual chat, and the officer actually said that, "Do you realize what Uri has done?" So I said, "What, sir?" And he said that the entry to NDA, the forms which come for NDA, has gone up by many folds. And in that form, there is a section where you have to, apparently, I don't know, but apparently you are supposed to write that, what is your reason of joining army? And there are a lot of kids who had written that we were inspired after watching Uri.
Wow,
So that's the power of cinema. That's the power of positive cinema, like cinema which is patriotic, which is basically encouraging your kids and youngsters ki yaar, there are people who are fighting for you. There are intelligence officers who are like, you will never get to know about them, but they are doing such a phenomenal job. And even if this film inspires like one kid, a boy or a girl, to get up and say ki yaar, mere ko apni country ke liye ye karna, I would think that my film is a super hit. Like this film is a super hit.
In army, intelligence, bureaucracy, anything that
serves the country,
gives you,
absolutely.
And more so today, when there's so much happening on social media. I'm not talking about the politics side of it, but generally, what I'm saying, the current generation or even the younger generation, are I think there's a sense of guidance. I think in some way, in terms of reality, is really needed. We're living a lot in virtual world, I feel, than reality. And this is just an insight in one of those important aspects. Of course, keeping in mind it's a film, our job is to entertain and engage our audience. And they should feel that it was worth 2 hours of our time and money, and worth not just to, once a film gets over and then, okay, now what do we do? Shall we have dinner? This and that. But you go home and you discuss a film. You go home and you talk about it. You go home and you think what you watched today. So then I think our purpose will be done.
Right. This question is to Aditya Dhar. Aditya, the other, the one great thing is making Uri. The another thing is to live with it. अब जो भी producer आपके पास आएंगे वो यही बोलेंगे हमको एक Uri बना के दो. What do you want to tell the producers who are going to come in the future?
No. So Rohit, it has already happened. Uri happened 5 years back, and the amount of offers I got after Uri to make another Uri or something like Uri was absolutely ridiculous. And for me, see, I consider myself really lucky that I am part of this industry, and I consider myself really lucky that I have the strength and have the like वो कहते हैं ना कि मेरे अंदर वो काफी आग है अलग अलग तरीके का सिनेमा करने की
जी
तो मैं हमेशा से चाहता था कि यार मैं हर फिल्म थोड़ा अलग करूं थोड़ा कुछ अलग दिखाऊं we have already produced 3 films in last 2 years which are going to come out now. There is one which is an action caper comedy, a genre which is kind of, it has never happened in India before. We have another film which is a action uh, paranormal thriller, a genre which has never happened in India before. This one is a action political thriller drama, Article 370, a genre which has never happened before. Uri was a surgical strike film on army, which was presented in a way where nobody had presented like that before. So for me, it is very important to create great films, entertaining films, but in a way where audience gets to see something absolutely new. Might be in terms of genre, or might be visually, or might be in terms of like the story, but there will always be with me something which where I really want to show something new. And for me, of course, like I would always love to make films on Indian Army. I would love to make films on Indian defense services. But the whole point is that it has to take me way beyond from Uri. Like it cannot be at the same level of Uri. It has to, the story has to be extraordinary. The world has to be brilliant. And then only for me it will be like convincing enough कि हाँ यार, I'll never make a film for the heck of it कि यार मेरे को पैसा मिल रहा है तो मैं बना लेता हूँ. Otherwise मैंने बहुत पैसा बना लिया होता पिछले 5 साल में. बिल्कुल. So the point is that for me this is my bread and butter. This is my everything. This is my vidya. So for me, I cannot cheat my way through it. I should not, because the day I do that, I'll lose whatever I've learned till date. That's what I feel. That's what I believe. So I really want to stay true to my craft, and that is where this whole thought comes from.
Right. You have entertained us. We can't thank you enough. And last question to the director, Aditya. The reason I asked you, that have you shown both the sides, because after seeing the trailer does show two leaders who played a big role in this, but it didn't show any other side, any other politician opposing it. Like, there were people who called it the darkest day of democracy. There were people who called it unconstitutional. That's the reason. What would you like lastly to tell them, that can they be assured your film is a fair display and Article 370 is something that you've included all that happened?
100%. My answer is yes. Once the audience goes to theaters on 23rd, I think that will be, the film itself will speak and answer for its this thing better. But I think yes. I mean, your clear-cut answer is 100% yes. Everything that you are saying right now is there in the film. And then let's see. I'm just excited to see how audience reacts to it.